Hebrews 11 verse 20 reads, "By faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regard to their future." We don't know a lot about Isaac from Scripture. We know that God appeared to Isaac and reaffirmed his covenant with Isaac and with Isaac's descendants. We know that Isaac married Rebekah and that Rebekah was barren, just like Isaac's mother Sarah. We know that Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of Rebekah, and the Lord answered his prayer. Rebekah became pregnant with twin boys. Esau was born first, with Jacob right behind him. In faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau, and in faith, during his old age, Isaac accepted God's will for his son as expressed through the blessings. If part of faith is trusting God with the future, then one of the lessons you can learn from Isaac is to trust God with your children's future. That's an important lesson to learn because, as a parent, we can waste a lot of time and energy worrying about our children's future. But part of Christian faith is learning to trust God with our children's future. So, how can you bless your children with regard to their future? In faith, you can speak prayers of blessing on their behalf. Speak words of blessing to them. Scripture is full of blessings that you may pray for your children or speak to them. You also bless your children in regard to their future when you raise them to know God and His Word and to walk in God's way. Part of growing in faith is learning to trust God with your children's future. Our next example of trusting God is Jacob. Hebrews 11, verse 21 reads, "By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of Joseph's sons and worshipped as he leaned on top of his staff." Part of trusting God with future is learning to trust God rather than trying to control people or events. This is a difficult lesson to learn, and it was especially difficult for Jacob. Jacob was born into the world grasping his brother's heel, and that really became a metaphor for his whole life. Jacob spent most of the life grasping for control. He manipulated his brother into selling his birthright for a pot of stew. Jacob even deceived his father into getting his blessings. Time and again, we see Jacob trying to manipulate, deceive, control, instead of trusting God to take care of the situation. The final picture we have of Jacob is Hebrews 11 verse 21 is that of him peacefully leaning on his staff, worshipping God even as he prepares to die. Jacob had finally learned to trust God rather than try to manipulate and control people and events. Are you a control freak like Jacob? There were a number of things in the lives of Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph over which they had absolutely no control at all. For starters, all three of their mothers were barren: Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel. None of them were firstborn sons of their fathers, and so, humanly speaking, none of them should have received the birthright of their eldest son. Yet, God in His sovereignty gave special blessings to each one of them. So, faith remains trusting God with the future, and that means trusting God rather than trying to control people or events. Do you worry about your children? God says, don't worry, have faith. Trust God with your children and their future. Be blessed.